Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Travel across the border to the U.S. is down amid Donald Trump's tariffs and 51st state rhetoric. How is this playing out in our nearest American neighbor, Washington State? We'll talk to an NPR journalist up first. And we're asking you, are you avoiding travel to the States? After 12:30, if you are staying in town, how about hitting up a concert? We're asking for your favorite concert venues in BC, past or present. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. To developing news on the tariffs up first. Just moments ago, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he is going to suspend the 25% surcharge on electricity that the province exports to 3 U.S. states. We're going to keep an eye on how Donald Trump will respond in terms of the 50% steel and aluminum tariffs he plans to impose tomorrow. Meanwhile, Premier David Eby says the province of BC will consider assistance to the Kitimat aluminum smelter and the community there. Eby spoke this morning with CBC's Gregor Craigie on the island.
Yeah, another day, another threat from Trump. We'll see what actually happens. You know, the astonishing thing about this, and I'm sure listeners appreciate this, to threaten Canada by imposing a 50% tax on manufacturers in the United States that use Canadian steel and aluminum. By the way, they can't get aluminum anywhere else. I mean, it comes from Canada. They don't have capacity to produce it. So manufacturers that rely on this are suddenly looking at a 50% tax on a metal that they can't find another source for. I mean, why on earth does the president think that that is an effective economic policy? Only he knows. But I'll tell you this. We're standing strong with Ontario. We're standing shoulder to shoulder with them. This is definitely harming American businesses and families. You can see it in the stock market results from yesterday, and you're going to see more of that. And for us in Canada, working together to protect Canadian families, British Columbian families, is priority one, and that's what we're going to do together right across the country.
In a social media post this morning, Donald Trump said the only way to avoid tariffs is to become the 51st state. Well, Canada and individual provinces, including BC, have imposed retaliatory measures, including banning U.S. liquor, and BC as well taking steps to put a levy on commercial trucks traveling through to Alaska. But it seems Canadian individuals are fighting back with their tourist dollars. New Statistics Canada data shows return trips to the States by car are down by almost a quarter this February compared to the same month last year. We're asking you, are you avoiding travel to the U.S.? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well. If you'd like to email us, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. First, we wanted to check in on how people in Washington State are reacting to the tariffs and the trade war. And joining me now is journalist Kim Malcolm, host of All Things Considered on NPR affiliate station KUOW, and she's in Seattle. Hi, Kim.
Hello there, Michelle. What a pleasure it is to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure you're just as busy as we are as journalists up here. What are you hearing from people in Washington about the tariffs, about the tensions and the trade war between Canada and the U.S.?
Yeah, it is a big topic of conversation up here, Michelle. Certainly, people are not happy. As you know, Washington is a very trade-dependent state, and Canada is one of our top export markets. I mean, Canada is second only to China in terms of total volume of exports, about $9.5 billion in 2023. And I would say that this on again, off again churn of threats about tariffs, you know, are they happening? Are they not happening? It's actually broken through all the other changes and disruptions that are happening. People were already feeling that prices were too high at the grocery store and all these different touch points in their daily lives. And now, you know, you pile on top of that, people are unhappy. They feel that a close, a valued relationship is being sabotaged. And, you know, folks around here, they know Canada, they're fond of Canada, and they feel bad about this.
There have been the steps being taken here, in various provinces, as we just heard Doug Ford in Ontario talking about electricity here in BC. Yesterday, David Eby said they're going to expand this ban on liquor from just red states to now all states, and Washington is a traditionally blue state. What would that mean for the wine industry there?
Yeah, that would be a blow. I reached out to the Washington Wine Commission, who just reinforced that the Canada is again our single biggest international export for wine. Now, I will say, yes, you like California wine, we understand that, but you also like Washington wine as well. Last year, our export report shows we had about, let me see here, 132,000 cases got shipped out to Canada.
Wow.
And that's a value of just over $10 million here. And it's been higher in previous years, up around 174,000 cases recently. Heather Bradshaw with the Washington Wine Commission told me that they're working closely with their in-market contractors to monitor the situation. They're reaching out to importers and agents of Washington wine to learn how they can best support them. But it's really a roller coaster going up and down right now. And broadly speaking, for alcohol sales, again, Canada is our largest export market, and so that hurts when those products are pulled off the shelves. And Quebec, Ontario, BC, of
Yeah.
course.
And they are so intertwined. We spoke with a winery in the Okanagan Valley a few months ago, talking about how when the deep freeze affected grapes up here, they then used Washington state grapes. And so the two industries themselves are closely intertwined. So we're going to watch to see what impact that has as well. Now we're hearing new StatScan data showing that the returns by Canadians across the border are lower, 23% lower than February of last year. When it comes to Canadians saying we're going to avoid travel to the States, it might be the dollar, the low Canadian dollar, but now some say that it is also because of Trump's policies. What impact does that have on Washington?
Oh, it's already being felt in Bellingham. There's been some local reporting. There's a couple of Hilton hotels out by the Bellingham International Airport. They're getting cancellation after cancellation, and that could mean a lot. As we move further into the year, Canadians can make up to 40% of their business. And just for here in Seattle and King County, the most populous area in Washington state, we had 1.66 million Canadians come to visit us in 2023. Canadians make up over 80% of all the international visitors that come here to Seattle and King County. And you spend money when you come. You go to our restaurants, you stay in our hotels, you pay for all the little things that you like to do on a vacation. And a couple of years ago, that added up to about $555 million that year. And I'll just one other, small note to say here. Seattle's been one of those cities that's had a slow recovery from the pandemic, and you can see it in the downtown core. Things are better, now 5 years on. Visitor numbers are back up to the 2019 numbers, but office worker foot traffic is still down a little bit. So if there's a drop in international visitors, it could risk putting things in the wrong direction.
I grew up going to visit Seattle. It's always been an easy decision to make in terms of where we're going to travel to for the weekend or something like that. There are really such close ties with Americans. And so what are you hearing from people just about that personally? Are they worried about those relationships, traveling to Canada, things like that?
Yeah, I do. No one's really expressing that concern out loud yet, but I do recall that there was some incident in the beginning of the COVID time when some cars got keyed out of state plates, and it's unfortunate that one's mind goes straight back to that kind of memory.
Mm.
But I would say people always try to figure out what it is that President Trump actually means when he's trolling someone, and these comments about the 51st state, which he doubled down on again, and referring to Justin Trudeau as Governor Trudeau, I mean, they say, well, you know what, that's just trolling, but that relationship really did deteriorate, and it didn't take long for Trump and Trudeau for that to be expressed publicly. And now it appears, these tariffs are going ahead no matter who the Canadian Prime Minister is. And that is embarrassing for people here who know how important the relationship is, who rely on that trade and value those alliances. And it is personal. It absolutely is personal. It feels like someone's picking on your cousin. And they're taken to the streets. There have been numerous protests about different kinds of issues, but this last weekend on Saturday, I saw a protest and there was a woman there holding a Canadian flag and a Ukrainian flag. And I asked her why she brought the Canadian flag to the protest, and she said she had a lot of good friends up in Canada, and they were feeling like they were being attacked, and it was very upsetting to her. So she said she was there to stand up for Canada and to say that this is despicable, and not everybody feels this way.
Kim, we'll check in with you down the road as well. Thank you so much for reporting on this today. Really appreciate it.
A pleasure to be with you, Michelle. Take care.
Take care. Kim Malcolm is host of All Things Considered on NPR affiliate station KUOW in Washington State. And we're asking you, are you avoiding travel to the U.S. yourself? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Yesterday, statistics from Statistics Canada showed that the number of return trips among Canadians traveling by car to the U.S. did go down 23% compared with a year earlier. And so we're wondering if that's something that you have thought about as well. Let's take some calls now. Brent is on the line from Comox. Hi, Brent.
Hello.
Hi. Are you thinking of avoiding travel to the U.S.?
Absolutely. I was going to go down there for some stem cell work. I was planning to dump 10 to 15 grand, and that's going to Switzerland now. But we were warned of this in the 80s, free trade debate. John Turner, Ed Broadbent, David Orchard, a Conservative Party member, and Diana Kilmurray warned us that we would be governed from Washington if we signed a deal with the U.S. It'd be totally out of our hands. We'd be blackmailed. And it'd be rich for the Conservatives now to say we're the solution to the problem when it was Conservative ideology, Conservative thinking that got in the situation in the first place. We were given a metric system to align us more with Europe to break that dependency, and they threw that out the window and basically sacrificed our country.
Is that relationship, is the free trade relationship the issue, given that NAFTA was signed way back in the 80s? Is the problem with having more free trade on the American continent versus an issue with a president right now who is implementing these tariffs?
The problem is deep integration with the U.S. economy. That's what left us vulnerable. That's what Mulroney advocated. That's what the Conservatives advocated. And that is why we're in this situation. But I do believe as soon as Congress gets its act together and gets organized, the impeachment vote will be in process very quickly, we hope.
Brent, thank you so much, and all the best with your stem cell treatment. Thank you.
We wouldn't be in this problem without Conservatives. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much for your call. Asking you, are you considering avoiding travel to the U.S.? Have you canceled the trip? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Patty is on Piers Island. Hi, Patty.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. And are you considering not going to the States for now?
Oh, you better believe it. And I travel a lot. And no, we're not going for at least 4 years, which is very sad because I also have family down there, too. My brother lives down there.
Oh, have you talked to your brother about this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's that conversation like?
Oh, he's not feeling good about things, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, how hard was it to make that decision for you to not visit family in the States?
Well, it's a tough decision, very tough decision. But I do have to say that being a proud Canadian is very important too. And I'm going to stay strong on that one. My husband and I are, and the rest of our family up here too.
Where do you think you'll go if you plan a vacation?
Well, we go to Mexico for the winters, and I'm going to add, we are not stopping in the States on the way. We're going direct. And then we usually take another trip or so during the year. And I will say that I've just recently canceled a very special big birthday trip to Turkey because I'm very, very concerned about the U.S. presence around there. And we'll be going to another part of Europe instead.
Okay, speaking with your dollars. Patty, thank you very much.
Okay,
Take care.
you.
John is next in Chilliwack now. Are you avoiding traveling to the States, John?
Hi there. No, not at all. I'm going to keep going to the U.S. I'm going to have my vacations there like I always do. It's not the people's fault, and I think if the feds were to bring the ports police back and inspect more of those containers for chemicals coming over from China and beef up our military, I'll bet Trump would back off on all this tariff talk and stuff. I really do. I think that's the big picture and what it's all about, Trump.
And you're worried about the impact on the local economy, on people living in the States?
I am. They're my friends and neighbors. They didn't start this with me, and I'm going to keep going there, and I'll still buy U.S. goods up here, too.
John, thank you so much for the call.
Hey, you have a great day. Thanks.
You
Bye
too.
now.
Take care. Bye-bye. Brian in Victoria, are you avoiding traveling to the U.S.?
Yes, we are. We were scheduled to leave today, as a matter of fact, to celebrate my sister's 88th birthday in Bellevue, and we canceled. And we canceled a week ago, and when I phoned the Hyatt, which I was paying $500 a night for a room, and they said, "Why are you canceling?" I said, because Trump has declared war on Canada. All the response was, "Oh." So until the U.S. stands up to Trump, be it Republicans or Democrats, both my wife and I refused to go down to the States. And when I talked to my sister, she was very sympathetic to what we've done. And I just think your whole country has been very gutless in their taking a stance. I read the New York Times every Sunday, and there's sort of a few paragraphs about Canada, but nobody down there is standing up and saying what horrific damage has been done.
So you're calling on American citizens who disagree to speak up? Speak
up, yeah. Okay. I was down in Mexico, and I met a lot of Midwesterners down there, and they didn't have a clue what was going on. Nobody knows what's happening. And the American press isn't covering it. CNN is, and a bit in the New York Times, but nobody's paying any attention.
So that the $500 per night that you would have been spending at the Hyatt in Seattle, where are you going to spend that, Brian?
I'll keep it in my bank account at home. And it's U.S. dollars, too.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that'll be good for something.
It's about $3,000 Canadian.
Okay, you have some plans to make then. Or, yeah, keep it in there. Keep it in the bank. Brian, thank you. Good to hear from you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. That is Brian in Victoria. And we have lots of emails coming in, and I'll go through them right now. But as we've been saying, this may be having an impact on people in Washington state, including people in Point Roberts. They're feeling the pinch. Brian Calder is a resident and past president of the Point Roberts Chamber of Commerce.
I'm a dual citizen. Half of us here, of 1,000 people here, half of us are dual citizens. And 90% of our economic activity comes from British Columbia. 90%. Take that away and say we're not coming to Point Roberts anymore. We're done. We're done. I encourage the president, go read the inscriptions on the Peace Arch and get a handle on what the history of our two countries, especially Canada and the U.S., totally putting a adversarial at each other's throats and mad now for no valid reason whatsoever.
That's Brian Calder speaking from Point Roberts, and a note that the American side of the Peace Arch crossing is inscribed with the words "Children of a Common Mother," and on the Canadian side, "Brethren dwelling together in unity." So that's what he was referring to there. Some emails from you now as well to bctoday@cbc.ca. If all future USA trips canceled, in recent years I've traveled to Palm Springs for 2 months every year. I've added to the Palm Springs economy, and I'm just one Canadian tourist. It is a prime destination for Canadians, but no more, and I'm deeply saddened. Randy writes, hopefully Canadians choose Mexico and other countries for their winter vacations. And Catherine writes, I am 100% avoiding going to the U.S. I live in Langley, relatively close to the border. I used to cross the border to get gas and pick up U.S. packages at a mailbox in Blaine. Sometimes shop at the big IGA there. That used to be the cost cutter. Yeah, she knows her Blaine. I'm no longer doing so. I will not go to the U.S. for the next 4 years if that's what it takes. Catherine, thank you very much. Let's squeeze in one call here. Sean in Victoria. Hi, are you avoiding travel to the U.S. or still going?
Yeah, I'm certainly avoiding it. I went to school there. I lived there for 15 years or more. I have friends from there, from college. And, yeah, I just don't feel good about going there. And half my friends voted for the idiot, even though I told them all about his connections to the mob.
What are your conversations like then? What are their reactions to you saying I'm not going there?
Well, the guy that I was going to visit, he just said, well, you know, he understood why I made that decision. His decision for voting for Trump was because he was going to inherit some big piece of property and he didn't want to lose it in taxes.
Okay.
My other friend, he just listened quietly and was, you know, empathetic and just listening to me and didn't really say much. And then the other one gaslit me and said that I was attacking her, and if I continued to speak about it, we wouldn't be friends at all. So,
Sean, the big range there. Thank you so much for your call. Appreciate hearing from you. Sean in Victoria. It's now 12:28. Jillian is calling from Port Alberni. And what about you, Jillian? Are you avoiding going to the United States or still going?
I'm avoiding everything American, if at all possible, but I would just like to put in an oar for people who say that the media is not paying attention, the Americans need to stand up. The mainstream media is not reporting and sane-washing a lot of stuff, including, I hate to say this, our own CBC's coverage of the RNC convention is at fault. But there is a very strong resistance movement in the United States, to the point where the Midas Touch Network, which is entirely independent, viewer-funded, they've surpassed even Joe Rogan in viewership.
Yes, that was a piece in the Globe and Mail today as well, yeah.
Yeah, there are projects like 50501, 50 demonstrations, 50 capitals, one day. They're into their third batch of demonstrations. The American veterans are demonstrating on the 14th of this month. So people really need to Canadians really need to take heart. We need to do our bit to protect our country, but we also need to become aware and support the American resistance movement, which is out there. And if we think it's bad for us, it's going to be much, much worse for them, because they didn't vote for Trump and they're at risk.
Jillian, thank you so much for the call. And Darlene writes, I think the decline of Canadians crossing the border should be more significant. I'm not sure how much more threatening things need to become to make us change where we spend our discretionary dollars. That's Darlene in Coquitlam. Our email address is bctoday@cbc.ca. And of course, the story around the tariffs is constantly developing. Reuters now reporting that Donald Trump says he is looking at reducing tariffs on Canada now, asked if he would reduce, that he says Probably so. And so from Donald Trump, the quote is, "I'll let you know if 50% tariffs on Canada is going into effect." So the latest twist and turn on tariffs from the United States on Canadian goods. We'll, of course, keep you updated on that here on CBC. It is 12:30 now. You're with BC Today here on CBC Radio 1, on CBC Television, and live streaming as well. I'm Michelle Elliott. Very nice to be with you this afternoon. And coming up in our next half hour, well, if you're going to stay in town, maybe you'll be hitting a concert or two. We want to ask you about your favorite concert venues, live music venues around the province. And, some of them have closed down but stay in our memories. So we want to hear about concert venues past and present on the open line. We're going to have a couple of musicians joining us as well. That's coming up after this CBC News Update with Amelia John.
Good afternoon. BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon says U.S. President Donald Trump's move to double the tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum will inflict more damage on Americans than Canadians. Kahlon says 60% of the U.S.'s aluminum needs come from Canada and 15% of that comes from BC. He says the province will try to support producers by protecting jobs and helping them find new markets. Well, tariff uncertainty has prompted jitters in the local real estate market. A report by the BC Real Estate Association says sales were down last month by almost 10% from the year before, while prices fell by 2.4% in the same period. Association Chief Economist Brendan Ogmanson says he expects apprehension among buyers to continue, although that might be tempered with lower interest rates. And it's been 5 years since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, but BC's top doctor says she still has security detail because of threats made against her and her family. Dr. Bonnie Henry says some people were lashing out in a time of crisis. Henry says she's learned it's important to communicate clearly to build trust. And now the BC forecast. On the north coast, cloudy with a chance of showers, high of 6 degrees. In the Peace, chance of showers, maybe some flurries, high of -5. In the central interior, mainly sunny, 5 degrees, highs around 7 with a chance of rain in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, chance of showers, high of 8. And for the south coast, periods of rain or snow at the higher elevations and a high of 6 degrees. That is your news from the CBC Vancouver newsroom.
Thank you very much, Amelia. That's Amelia John in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And then on that last story, the 5-year mark since the COVID pandemic began, our friends over at On the Coast are reflecting on how it changed the world. Gloria Makarenko is telling us how she's marking this milestone anniversary.
Hello there, it's Gloria Makarenko here, and I would love it if you could join us this afternoon for On the Coast, because here we are. It has been 5 years since the BC government declared a public health emergency over COVID-19. So today we're going to talk about some major advances that we have seen in medical technology since then. We'll meet a UBC doctor and professor who was involved in the development of the mRNA vaccine. And we'll also find out about the promise that vaccines could one day have with other diseases, including cancer. Dr. Peter Cullis is going to be our guest this afternoon on the Coast between 3 and 6.
That will be very interesting. Gloria, thank you so much. We've been asking you if you are avoiding travel to the U.S. Patty writes, not going. I had tickets for theater in New York City canceled at a cost of $500. I canceled and will not return until Trump is gone. I also have concert tickets in Seattle for August. I still haven't booked a hotel or travel. I really want to go, but if this war is still on, I'm not going. And Anne writes from Beasley, I'm in the process of canceling my Airbnb reservations, and Airbnb owned by a friend of Elon Musk. And lots more emails, of course. So we're taking them to our email address here, bctoday@cbc.ca. Well, the countdown is on for Canada's biggest night in music to return right here to Vancouver. The Juno Awards returns to the West Coast on March 30th, and that will be the first time since 2018. All of this is highlighting the availability and access to live music across the province. We want to hear from you. Tell us about your favorite live music venue in BC, past or present. And who did you see? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well. If you want to email us, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. And I have two guests with me for this conversation. Jody Glenham is a Vancouver-based musician, DJ, and talent booker at China Cloud Studios. And Matt Dell is a Victoria City councillor, also an indie musician and children's music performer. Hello to both of you.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. I'll ask you first then, what's your favorite music venue, Jody?
I mean, the Commodore Ballroom really sticks out.
I knew that would come up.
Absolutely. But also for a smaller venue, the Fox Cabaret does great shows in town and really has a community around it as well.
Yeah, there's that. And how about yourself, Matt?
Well, I'm going to have to say my favorite venue is the Herman's Jazz Music Venue, which the City of Victoria purchased this year. So it's our first municipally owned music venue or nightclub in Canada. So I have a special spot in my heart for that one. But in Victoria, we have a bar called Lucky Bar, which has been around for about 25 years. It's my favorite rock venue in the City of Victoria.
Wow. Can I ask you about that? I mean, how unusual is it for a city council to purchase property and to turn it into a music venue?
It's very unusual at this level of a nightclub kind of rock music venue. I think Victoria owns the first municipal-owned nightclub in Canada that I found, perhaps North America. But actually, it's not so unusual in the fact that cities often own theaters. So we've recognized that private entrepreneurs wouldn't really build a theater and do that because there's just not enough money to be made in it. So we accept that a municipal government, provincial government would run a large theater. I think like the Orpheum in Vancouver. In Victoria, it's the Royal Theatre and the McPherson, which the City of Victoria owns, some other partners. And so you have to go, well, if we own theaters, why wouldn't we own things like a jazz club or a rock venue, which are also being priced out of the market as kind of younger people can't afford to open venues anymore.
And do you expect that to return some revenue for the city?
Yeah, that's right. Well, one, it's a strategic real estate investment purchase. So we now own that real estate, which could in the future become something else, another venue with housing on top of it, for example. And yeah, we've leased our venue out, the Herman's Jazz Building. It has 4 separate clubs in it, actually. So those have been leased out to independent promoters who are paying revenue, and we're putting that back into the building, and eventually will become a revenue source for the city. So it's a big win in terms of preserving arts and culture space in the city, making space for musicians to play, and also, letting citizens kind of take back control of arts and culture in a way.
And Jody, you're nodding as you're listening. Do you feel there is a lack of music venues?
Well, I just think that's such a cool thing for Victoria to do, and it's the best way, I think, for a city to actually learn what kind of legislation needs to change for all music venues if they're actually functioning inside of one.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
How easy or difficult is it for yourself as a DJ to find a place to perform?
DJing is great here in Vancouver. There's lots of different levels of which you can do that with. Being a musician is definitely more of a hustle, more of a grind here. I think that's just the way it is in cities right now with the way that the economy is, and a lot of rates have gone up. Musician rates haven't gone up.
Okay, so when you say rates, so DJ rates have gone up?
Musician rates. So like for a band is still being paid, a local band still being paid $100, $150 for a whole band to play, to do an opening show, even if it's a good show, like a sold out show. Yeah. And so it makes it hard when you're splitting that 4 ways.
I'm sure. So what does that mean for local artists, local musicians?
I just think more community-driven spaces are really important. Smaller venues that, anywhere from like 175 to 200 people, like that's kind of an area where Vancouver can really improve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, speaking about favorite music venues, is that different if you're looking at it from the perspective of a fan versus a performer?
Yes and no. Like I think even as a fan, you can walk into a place and if it's got soul, if it's got a good heart, if it's run by people that love music. I think that's so important to actually enjoy that. It's it is a business, absolutely. But like my favorite places have always been the places where you walk in and you can walk in when there's nobody in there and you can just feel the energy in the place.
Okay, well, speaking of people who run, I mean, I know you, Matt, you don't run these clubs, but you were involved in the moves to purchase them and set them up. And you're a musician yourself. I mean, how much did that motivate you?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Okanagan Valley, where I was a promoter in high school in the Oliver Osoyoos area, and I moved to Victoria to be a promoter and a musician. And so it's very motivating me to be on council now and to have a couple of levers at the council level. And for example, on the venue side, Victoria has a grant called the Cultural Infrastructure Grant, which is a grant where we help invest in infrastructure, sound systems, bathrooms, elevators, lighting, all that kind of stuff for our venues in the city. Unfortunately, local governments can only provide grants to not-for-profit. So in Victoria, the not-for-profit venues are doing somewhat a little bit better because the city can help them out. But it's the private venues that are facing increasing financial burdens. You know, the cost of rent, the cost of insurance. Frankly, a lot of people my age would be crazy to pool all their money or their life savings and try to open a music venue. So I think it kind of lends a bit to the importance of not-for-profits and the importance of a city to have those type of grants that help nonprofit venues with some of their capital costs, so they can invest, $10,000 in a new PA system, or we helped one of our venues here purchase an elevator, Victoria Event Center, so it was a bit more of an accessible venue. So that's one way local governments can help, and I've just been advocating for more funding for those programs. Ours is $150,000 a year, but it could easily be $200,000 or $300,000 a year. So local government has a big role to play, and that's kind of what I'm learning about and trying my best to implement.
It's interesting because here in Vancouver, they are re-envisioning what Granville could look like, all right, in terms of what the kinds of venues and the kinds of businesses that would actually support an arts and entertainment district. Like, what do you see are things that are needed to ensure success for those music venues? What should be around them? What kind of transportation should be available and that kind of thing? Go ahead, Jody.
Parking for being able to bring your gear, just being able to, that's a big one that I feel like is overlooked sometimes. Yeah. And just the cost of what it is for your audience to come to you.
Right. Yeah. To get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the first place. Yes. Yeah. What about you, Matt?
It's a really interesting question. I think you're right. You've identified that there's an increasing conflict between music venues and residential uses and that type of stuff. So some of our older clubs are being pushed out by condo developments that are going next door. So what we're seeing across Canada, which I think is a great trend, is these sort of districts that are set up for light industrial. Victoria is just about to launch ours. It's going to be called the Arts and Innovation District, and that will be just north of the city, just north of Victoria's Chinatown. It's going to be a district where the bylaws are a bit more flexible. It's going to be a combination of kind of light industrial, warehouses, some residential, and more flexibility for breweries, music venues. And this is actually happening across Canada. I know Portland has something called the Pearl District. I believe.
Of course,
Winnipeg,
Portland does.
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Edmonton has something called the Ice District, I believe, and Winnipeg has another particular area. I can't remember what it's called, where local governments are creating these districts. Go, you know what? Things can happen there. Try out some innovative stuff.
Right.
There won't be as many rules, and we won't face those kind of growing conflicts. And I'm curious about Vancouver's approach on Granville, how they'll kind of manage that, having people out in the street at 2 a.m, celebrating, listening to music with the conflicts of the residential area. So in Victoria, that's going to be called the Arts and Innovation District, and I think it'll be coming to council to get final approval sometime this year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I was just at the Pearl on Granville, and that was what I observed. It was amazing inside. Like, really, what a great vibe. I got to watch it as part of the audience, but also as an MC for the fabulous acts that were performing. But then you go outside, and yes, it's quiet because there's not much else going on. So that's, I guess, something that they're going to try and address. We'd love to hear from you. We're talking about music venues and asking you, what is your favorite in BC, in your part of the province, and whether it's past or present as well, because there are some that are now long gone. Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And if you'd like to email us, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. And let me just check our email right now. Yes, we have an email here from Ellie, who writes, long gone now, but I miss the Savoy. It was owned by the same people. Bob Williams, who operated the Railway Club. Cozy, but with a dance floor. It was on the second floor at the Maple Tree Square. Oh, I can picture it now in Gastown. And in the 80s and 90s, I attended more than 1,000 shows at the Commodore Ballroom. Oh, fantastic, Ellie. Thank you very much for that. And Joan writes, favorite places in Victoria. Okay, Matt, listen to this. In the past, Fairfield Church, now demolished, and it's an empty lot, had fantastic concerts there. Alex Golden has had such wonderful concerts. Not sure why many quit booking there. Safety in the area could have been an issue. Also love the Belfry, Langham, Metro, and the Victoria Event Center, and of course the Royal Theatre and McPherson. Joan, thank you so much. What do you make of those venues, Matt?
Yeah, those are some wonderful venues in Victoria. A couple of them are gone, and those are reasons we could talk about for hours. But she's identified some of the best venues in Victoria that are very special spots here. So nice to hear those names mentioned.
Oh, the ghosts of music events past. And I don't know if the Savoy was ever something that you had been to, Jody.
No, I moved here in 2006 from the prairies, but from Winnipeg. But I miss Richards and Richards. That's definitely one that I was around for.
That was a great space as well because you had the kind of the stairs,
the mezzanine that went all the way around.
Right.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Enjoyed that. You had such a great view of the stage from up there. Yes, I spent a few nights at Richards on Richards. I also love the Chameleon. There used to be the Chameleon Lounge in the basement of the Georgia Hotel, and saw some really good DJs there, drum and bass. Loved it. Here's one from Nell who writes, oh, this is a good one. As a Bernabarian, did we settle on that? Myself. Nell writes, my favorite live music venue is the grassy slope at Deer Lake Park. What a great suggestion. My memorable moments were during two separate Burnaby Blues festivals. First was a wonderful set by Blue Rodeo, and second one was a magical concert by Katie Lang. Oh, amazing. Imagine Katie singing her iconic Hallelujah against the backdrop of the sun setting on the lake, her iconic take on Hallelujah. I still get goosebumps. Now I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because that Katie Lang performance or version of Hallelujah is just so stirring. And yes, Deer Lake Park, I've been to many. I saw Lauryn Hill there a few years ago. She was a little late. Late as she was known to be. But yes, saw her at De La Soul opened up. And so we waited for a few hours, but it was worth it. Love that. The idea of outdoors. Have you performed outdoors, both of you? Yeah, I'm sure you have as a children's performer. Matt?
Me? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, absolutely. I'm thinking of all the venues we have in the city. We have a wonderful venue in Victoria, similar to your Deer Lake Park, called Beacon Hill Park. Beacon Hill Park has a big bandstand called Cameron Bandstand. Yeah. It's an interesting story, actually, because Beacon Hill Park was given by a trust from the province. So one of the trust rules is that there's no sales allowed. So no ticket sales, no merch sales, no coffee, booze, anything. So it's one of those examples of it's a beautiful venue, but it creates quite a few complications in the fact that we can't have many shows there that require, financing and stuff like that. So of course I'm a low-key kids musician, so I don't need any money or have any merch to sell. But a lot of the big shows, I know you guys are getting Neil Young, for example, I think at one of your outdoor venues later this year. And, I mean, it would be amazing to have Neil Young play in Beacon Hill Park in Victoria, but unfortunately we have to sell tickets for that, and that would be offside the trust, Victoria. But Beacon Hill Park,
he might be okay doing it.
In fact, he might be okay doing it. And then tell him there are sheep running about. And then maybe that'll be a bigger draw for him. 1-800-825-5950-604-669-3733. Aaron is on the line from Kamloops. Your favorite music venues, past or present. Hi, Aaron.
Hello. My favorite venue right now would have to be the FE Arts Collective in Kamloops.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me about it.
Well, I'm the co-owner of it. And it's a cute little hole in the wall. It's like stepping back in a time of it's a low 100-seat venue. We're getting some national recognition of people coming to play it, and it's just something you'd find in underground Toronto, New York, something like that. It's in the middle of Kamloops. And,
love it.
It's just a wonderful little place.
Oh my goodness! And how are you doing in terms of being able to maintain it and keep it running?
Well, we're owned, the property is owned by a housing collective. So
wow,
it's very financially feasible now. But of course, we are going to get developed in the future, sooner than later, perhaps. So we are experiencing what every venue across the country is experiencing, that financial crunch and just finding an affordable place. It's wonderful, though, to see the kids are starting to come back out. And,
nice.
And to find these spaces, too.
Yeah.
And starting to form bands again. So I have hope for the music industry in the country.
Oh, lovely. Aaron, thank you so much. Good on you. Congratulations on that. In Kamloops, the FE Arts Collective. So if you're looking for a cool dive to go to with some great music, it's the FE Arts Collective in Kamloops. And we have another caller from Victoria now. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how you doing today?
I am well. What are your favorite music venues there or elsewhere?
You know what? My favorite music venues over the years when I've been enjoying live music have always been overseas, to be honest. One of the things that I thought that they do an amazing job of in places like Indonesia and Australia and lots of different places overseas are things called day clubs, where they'll actually have, really good quality DJs come and play, and the club will be open from, say, 9 or 10 a.m. until 5 or 6 in the evening. And oftentimes the location is outdoors or has a big outdoor space where if the weather's nice, you can go and you can dance outside, kind of like a bit of a festival vibe, but it's something that's just a regular club that runs, every week in those particular cities. I was always curious as to why North America never, or at least in Canada here, never really adopted that concept, even if it was just something that you would open during the summer months or something like that.
Yeah.
A question that I would be interested in posing to the DJ guest that you have there is, is there anything like that in Vancouver? Is there any, thought of ever developing anything like that? Like, I do appreciate weather affects the ability of a day club to survive, but it was one of the coolest vibes I've ever had when enjoying live music, and would love to see something like that come to fruition around here.
It sounds awesome, Chris. Thank you very much. Yeah, do we do that here?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the legislation around that works,
Right,
but I do think that lends to why it's not happening. I know that the Westin used to do a daytime pool party around Pride. That doesn't happen anymore. But I do know that there are some coffee shops that are doing daytime DJ, like morning, like from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Oh, cool.
So it's not like the club aspect, but it is kind of that early morning. You can bring your kid. You can some people aren't late night people, and that's totally fair. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm becoming less of a late night person.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I will take it. I will take it. The early night. Have you heard, is that something that you've run into yourself, Matt?
No, I think overall it just shows that there's still quite restrictive policies in place around music in Canada in general. Like, we've generally had this take of like music should be confined in a certain spot. You shouldn't have to hear it. Yeah. Keep it separate. And it's a very complex web through our liquor licensing, through our building permits. And so one of the things that I've been working on right now is try to crack open a 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. culture in Victoria. So that late night culture, which I think you also see in places like Germany and Berlin. And people really do like that, where here we go. Nope, 2 a.m., everything's shutting down, which is quite unrealistic in many ways, and also a bit of a security risk where you force people to kind of drive home at 2 a.m. rather than giving them something to do. So I think those things tie together, where we just need to make it easier for all types of arts and culture to exist in the city through our liquor laws, building permits, all that kind of stuff. So it's a work in progress in Victoria, but I have definitely not heard of any day clubs. I think it's a wonderful idea, though. I'm glad it was raised.
Yeah, great suggestion, Chris. Thank you. Candy in Summerland, thanks very much for calling. What's your favorite music venue?
Well, first of all, I just am enjoying the show so much because I'm a huge 65-year-old grandma that loves live music. So
Nice.
I support live music. And I was reflecting, one of my favorite spots with my late husband, we'd get on the motorcycles with friends and go to the Ashcroft Opera House, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Maybe some of your, and it wasn't opera. We went and saw, rock and band, and it went another time for blues. And the couple that owned it, it would be a sellout. It was the best, cool place, downtown Ashcroft. But we're also very lucky in Penticton because we have the Orchard House. And a local band named the Yard Cats, a huge shout out to them. They would have an and I'm not related to them, but guess what they would do? Every last Saturday of the month, you'd go to the Orchard House. It was lined up down the block from 1 p.m. to 4. It was a jam, but great Valley.
Oh.
You'd dance.
Candy, I'm so sorry. You're cutting out, but it sound like your voice is enough to tell us how much fun you had. And it sounds like you would dance and listen to house, jazz, rock, blues over at the Ashcroft Opera House. I'm looking at photos of it right now. It looks like it was a real heritage kind of building as well. It was built in 1889 as the village's first town hall. So way to use something historic there. Our last caller is, let's head back to the Metro Vancouver area. Paul is calling from North Van. Hi, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
I am fine. What's your favorite music venue?
I would say the Rogue Folk Club, which is a organization in Vancouver. They usually put on concerts at St. James Hall.
Absolutely, yes.
So check out the Rogue website. They have world-class performers in bluegrass, Americana, folk, roots music. And for $30, $35 a concert. It's a wonderful place.
Thank you so much, Paul. It is, okay, we're getting lots of emails here as we are jogging people's memories. Michelle writes, I saw my most memorable concert was at Beacon Hill Park, seeing Etta James sing live in the park one summer night. There's nothing else that compares. I can't imagine what that must have been like. Oh my gosh. Brackendale, Art Gallery Cafe and Cultural Center. Shout out, new management, performers love the acoustics, the crowd, the ticket sales, and audiences are coming from afar. Vancouver to Pemberton. I'm going through many of these, and Liz writes, shout out to the Mary Winspear Center in Sydney. The Charlie White Theatre is a great venue, great staff, and acoustics. People love their venues. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, both of you, for starting this conversation, you know, where we are now and where we need to go when it comes to providing these arts and culture spaces. Very nice to speak with you both.
You too.
Thanks for having me.
Shout out to all of those wonderful spaces as well. That's Jody Glenham and Matt Dell.